This is an Eye on Annapolis bonus podcast.
All the background noise you hear is here at the Boatyard Bar and Grille, and I am really happy that I'm able to finally get in because I think I am so impressed with Dick Franyo, who is sitting across the table from me, that has been able to really thrive as much as you can thrive during a COVID situation. I've tried to come here several times, and it's like, it's a 45, 50-minute wait, and usually that's like 7:30 at night, and my stomach's going to be really rumbling by 8:30. So it's fantastic to see how you've bounced, I wouldn't say back, but bounced during this COVID situation and, made the best of a bad situation. And you were also the co-chair or the chair of the city's task force for small businesses to get support to the small businesses, which was so critical when this really first broke. And we wanted to touch base with you and find out, sort of take the temperature of the business community here. I mean, you are a business leader in the community you're 15 years now on the Boatyard? 19th?
Yeah.
Wow. A great...
Actually, entering our 20th right now.
Congratulations.
Thank you.
Big party? We'll see.
Next year, if we can even do one, we'll see.
We will see. But great supporter of the Chesapeake Bay. I mean, I know that you have, with the Bands in the Sand, you're always a sponsor there, and you've got the Annapolis Maritime Museum, and I don't think we could have asked for a better ambassador for the business community than Dick Franyo and the Boatyard here in Eastport. But what I want to do is I want to talk with you, and let's see if we can get Stephen Rice, who is the city's economic development manager. He was the coordinating end of this from your task force to sort of pull this all together from on the city end, right?
Right. And Steve was an excellent partner. And, good for Gavin, who's a businessman who, for saying that we needed this. And so Gavin asked me to do it and, of course, work with Steve. And it was a great team. And, I know Steve knows, I think, the world of him. And I think we got some really good stuff done.
Well, I'll tell you what, let's grab him on the phone. I think that, we are here, fortunately, in person. Which is wonderful. I love to get out and see somebody as opposed to the Zoom calls. But Steve is back at home, so we're going to grab him on the phone and see what we'll bring him in on the conversation.
Let's do it.
Hello.
Hey, Stephen, it's John Fernay. How are you?
Hi, John. How are you?
Good. We've got Dick on the line as well.
Hello, Steve.
Hi, Dick.
And we just sat down here for lunch without you, so you're missing. You're losing.
Well, send me the bill.
I'll drop it off on my way out of here. It's what, 140 Gorhams?
Yeah. Make sure Sally Nash gets it.
There you go.
There you go. Well, joining us on the phone is Stephen Rice, who is the Economic Development Manager for the City of Annapolis. You are a gentleman that was hired not too far in advance of this whole COVID thing, so you were kind of quickly thrown into the fire, weren't you?
Absolutely.
What we wanted to do is really sort of discuss between Dick and yourself and sort of take the temperature of businesses in Annapolis, what we may have to look forward to or not look forward to and everything else. But the main thing that you guys have done, or one of the first things that you did, was the mayor said, hey, we need to save our businesses. The businesses are the lifeblood of it, and whether without businesses, the tourists aren't here. Without it's all intermixed. I keep saying it's like a game of whack-a-mole where you hit down three things and then another gopher pops up in the corner that you've got to whack that down. But you guys started a small business task force here for the City of Annapolis, and you were the liaison, if you will, for the city, and Dick was the liaison for, I guess, the business community. But, Stephen, what exactly was the task force tasked with?
Well, I'll say the biggest thing we were tasked with was coming up with some immediate help to help stop the bleeding and to provide some immediate assistance to small businesses. And then the other thing that we were really tasked with was coming up with some recommendations that had a more medium or long-term impact to help the businesses going forward. So the challenge, of course, we still don't know how long this COVID-19 economy is going to last and when we'll get back to normal, and we're not sure what normal is going to look like. But those are the two, I'd say, most important prong of our charge. And we can go into, more specifics, but I think that's it in a nutshell.
What came out of the task force then, I guess, at this point? Obviously, I know that when I drive up Main Street or I drive down Maryland Avenue or down on 4th Street in Eastport, I mean, you see the barriers up there. You've got the recovery zones, which I can make the argument for is really not a great marketing name, but that's okay. It serves its purpose. But what all came out of the task force when you were, finally able to breathe?
So what we did, just real quick, John, we surveyed. We had 2 citywide surveys to check the temperature of the business community and to try to get a sense of what their challenges were and where we might be able to help. We also, over the course of our work, engaged over 500 businesses, and the task force was made up of 50 members who served on 10 committees and subcommittees. But what we produced a number of best practice guidelines for various industries, and these are, more specifically COVID-19 economy best practices, not, prior to COVID. So we were producing something that was kind of relevant. We also suggested 83 different recommendations. Many of the recommendations were for the city. Some of the recommendations were actually for the business community itself to implement that would make themselves more resilient. And between our contracted business counselor and the business advisory committee that we set up, we had 66 businesses that received direct business counseling services. So as far as, kind of stopping the bleeding and, making sure that we try to arrest any sort of potential decline, that was the part of that was the survey that informed our recommendations and let us know what we needed to do. And then part of it was, providing some immediate business counseling. The other thing that we did was we rolled out I believe it was 8 separate websites with various resources and links and information to keep the small business community informed. And, it covered the gamut from, federal programs to state programs to, other initiatives that, would be value added. So we did produce a lot. At this juncture, we have implemented about 52% of those recommendations. The biggest recommendation was the creation of the recovery zones. Right. And the recovery zones are what you definitely see going up Main Street. And they have been a lifeline to a lot of our restaurants and retailers during this time.
Well, this whole task force had to be a true lifeline to some of the businesses. And I've been around town a lot, and I know that in good times there are some businesses that I wouldn't say don't deserve, but they really struggle to stay in business because they're just not good business people. Right. And you look at, some people that operate on such a shoestring that, boy, it had to be such a whammy.
It sure was. One of the things that I was proud of, that Steve and I both were, was something that I think never been done before is we would have these calls, and we would have a Zoom call, and we would have like the food service people, my peers. And one call was, Steve, what did we have, 91 or 100 people on the phone? Yeah, I think
it got to 96 or something
96,
like that.
96, so
pretty phenomenal.
96 people in my business, who I compete with and,
Sure.
somewhat. But it was a time when everyone said, compete, schmeat, we need to work as a team and find out how we're going to make it through. And I had people call after these calls, and they said, I've never seen this before, where all of us get on the line on a Zoom call and compare notes and ideas and thoughts as to how we're going to get through this as a industry. And we did a retail one, similar one. We had some, experts on the line to talk about, stocking and things like that,
right.
Moving outside and how you could do it. And then we had a lodging one, similar. Had our statewide industry head, come in and talk about it. And I think I really got lots of positive feedback saying, good for you all for getting us out and sharing thoughts.
Well, something that I had heard from several businesses that did participate in this, both in all the different aspects of it, was that this was pardon the language, but a no bullshit task force. Okay, I mean, there was information that was given out, and it may not have been good information. It probably wasn't, but it was real information, and it was actionable. Is what the feedback that I received as not being part of it, which really sort of speaks well to it. That it was like, okay, hey, we are in this together. And I look at different things around town. The whole market space, that was just sort of like a disjointed. Okay, I'm competing against Middletons and O'Briens and McGarvey's, and we're all these little fighting things, but this coerced them. Coerced? That's not the word, but coalesced them. And, they're working together like the West Street merchants had done. And I think that, that's largely due to the work of this task force.
Yeah, I would just say that when Steve and I started out, and I agreed to do it, and of course Steve was tasked with it. We had a call, and we both said, okay, if we're going to do this, we got to do a lot of concrete things. And the downside of ever being on a task force is a month goes by and people say, what have you done? You're just sitting around talking. So we said, okay, if we're going to do this as a team, we're going to put a lot of concrete things and get them done. We're going to put them down and we're going to get them done. So people at the end of the day say, they really helped us.
They really did. And I will say, I know that I heard you, Dick, say at one point that, at least in the restaurant world, that just projecting, moving forward in through COVID, that you could expect as a restaurant owner or operator anywhere between 25 and 40% of what your prior year's revenue was. Is that correct? Or am I getting that close?
Yeah, we're actually doing a bit better than that because the weather's been good and we have a large tent.
Right.
I think my guess is overall people are down 10 to 50%, depending upon where you are, what your business is, and of course we're not there yet because it's going to get cold. So now we're all scrambling, saying, well, what do we do? Because if you use the 6-foot rule inside, we probably have 50% of the table seats, and then, of course, really there's not anyone at the bar, so to speak, so you're probably losing a lot of people there. So my guess is we're probably at 40% of the people you would have inside, so you need to have something outside, and good for the state and the county and the city to allow us to do that. But now it's going to get cold, so we have to figure out that. And the other thing I would say is the city, Steve and the mayor and his team, overall, they were so good at working with us and trying to move outside. And they just didn't say willy-nilly, just do whatever you wanted to. They actually had rules, and we had to put in a permit to do it, put in for a permit, but they turned them around in a day. So they were great. They didn't let us just do anything, but they really helped us get it up fast, which was great.
Well, I think another thing, too, that makes it a little bit easier in that we are a subdivision, if you will, of Anne Arundel County, that County Executive Pittman was dealing with more of the day-to-day, okay, how do we deal with the health? How do we deal with managing what's going to be open and closed? And I know the mayor can obviously go against him, but, I mean, that allowed the mayor and the city to focus on the business. I mean, the central business locations in Anne Arundel County are here, Glen Burnie, and Hanover. And Hanover tends to have the the big bucks, the deep pockets, the casinos, and the malls that can figure it out. Glen Burnie is probably struggling a little bit. I don't know too well. But I think that really sort of helped us here. What do you guys, you talked about winter, Dick. What do you, and Stephen, you probably have some insight on this. What is the forecast for the winter?
Yeah, why don't, Steve, you go first and and then I'll talk about our business and others around here.
Sure. So we are, concerned about the winter and the cold weather and its impact on the businesses. And so specifically what we're looking at doing and what we've rolled out recently is a winterization effort. And we have done a number of things. Number one, we put out we let the businesses know that they could winterize their tents. And this is primarily restaurants and retail. And we also put out some guidelines or some guidance on that winterization process that covers the tents and the heaters that would allow the outdoor experience to continue. And so it's really a balancing act because, we've pulled in different assets, across the city, and we've been trying to balance health concerns, safety concerns, comfort, and commerce. And from the health standpoint, of course, number one, the issue is COVID. And then, another issue potentially is carbon monoxide, which could be emanated from a heater, depending on the kind of heater that you have within a tent. And then the other, from a safety standpoint, looking at, fire hazards and accessibility, not only for, people to go up and down the street, but also accessibility of the fire department to these locations and to the restaurant, if indeed they need to get there for some sort of, public safety reason. And then, of course, comfort being the comfort of the patrons who would be participating in this dining experience, and, commerce is the operation of the restaurants. So I think we've done an excellent job in coming up with a balanced approach. Another thing that the mayor has done, he actually has reached out to the governor and asked for some funding that could possibly help pay for, this winterization initiative, and, through a grant program or something like that, to try to provide some resources, to these restaurants, of course, and retailers that we know have been negatively impacted by COVID. And so that's kind of the plan. We're looking to manage this winterization effort through, I would say, March of next year, through the entire, length of the cold winter months and into the spring, so that we provide as much opportunity as possible for these restaurants and retailers to survive.
Yeah, well, my fingers are crossed for a very mild winter this year, that's for sure. But it's, and as you mentioned, Dick, you're fortunate in that you have what was a parking lot for, 20 cars or something like that, that's now a dining venue for probably 50 people.
Right. Our goal is to try to keep all of our staff on, because, at the end of the day, my business is important, but, we really live and die by the people that work here, and we just want to be able to get through this period and keep everyone on payroll. So it's all about them, really.
Well, there was a lot of lifelines that were thrown out. Obviously, the task force is a great one for information and actionable items to be able to do. But the county turned around and did, through their Economic Development Corp, they had the protection grants that were out up to $10,000. Of course, you had the PPP, which was a nightmare or a godsend, one way you look at it, or both. And you had the other different loans that were available. And I think that businesses really needed to do that. Now, Stephen, do you think that there are some businesses, like I say, that struggle and they don't, maybe they shouldn't be in business? How do you determine whether a business is going to be able to survive something like this? Is there a way to do that?
The market forces pretty much do that for us. But what we've tried to essentially help any and all businesses that we can. And a lot of what we end up doing is, connecting businesses to resources, or providing them with information that maybe they don't have that could help them in their in their efforts to survive and thrive. We're very empathetic to the plight of the business owner right now, and we know that there's a lot of pain out there. So we try not to pick favorites. We just try to serve as a resource and a conduit to additional resources and information that might help.
I know one of the things that Steve and his team has done is, rumors around that so-and-so may be struggling. And I would hear one, I would say, Steve, I just heard that so-and-so, may not make it. And Steve would say, yep, we heard it and we've already reached out. So they're really looking and keeping their eyes and ears open and then calling people and say, is there anything that we can do to help?
I had heard somebody, and I don't remember who it was, it probably was the mayor speaking the other day, who said, and I was like, okay, I jotted this down, I need to check this out if this is true or not, but he said that we had not lost a single restaurant in the city of Annapolis since this thing really started. And I was like, really? And I know the town center has lost a couple and whatnot, but then I was like, okay, in the city, I don't think there really has been.
I think that's right.
I mean, there were some that were closed,
crossed,
obviously, for a while. I mean, I'm sure you closed for a week or whatever it was and figure out how to do it. But it was, and that's impressive. And that really does speak to, the efforts of every single business that's in this town, including, Dick, you and the Boatyard here, as well as what the task force, Stephen, the city, and everybody has come together to do that.
The only thing I would add there is, we have been blessed with actually a pretty nice summer, not too hot, and we could use outside downtown and Eastport and everywhere, all the various wards around town. And but now, I would just say to anyone who listens is, winter is coming. It's going to be tougher on us. So hopefully people will go out and visit your favorite watering hole or dining establishment.
Well, I will say that I know when this first hit, the big push was like, go buy a gift card now to give some cash flow to the businesses and then use it later. And that was a big mantra that was all over the nation. And I think at this point we look around Annapolis and we can see, hey, these restaurants are here. They've survived. This is, arguably probably the worst of it because it came on now. I mean, if we've got a surge coming, we've sort of got a playbook to figure out how to deal with this, but it's not going to take us by surprise. Is that something that you recommend? I mean, obviously people may be a little bit more hesitant to dine or to shop during the winter. Do you guys feel that it would make sense to go support doing business or gift cards or gift certificates and then look in the spring or summer?
Sure, gift cards help, and also carryout's been a huge part of all of our business. So, you call in and order some food and come by. It's been a much larger part of everyone's in the food service business in the last period over this COVID period, and so that helps too.
To add to that, we definitely encourage Annapolitans and everyone in the Annapolis area to eat, shop, and stay local. And there's definitely a big because of seasonality and what happens in the winter. Typically we do have a fall off in day trippers and tourists and that sort of thing. So it's even more important for local residents to support their local businesses. And given this COVID economy, that drop off will probably be or maybe even more acute. So it just makes it even that much more important for local residents to eat, shop, and stay local.
Right, and I would just add that except for the period when we were closed, we could only do the carry-out, which was a period of weeks. I think, the worst really could be coming up when it gets cold because so much of our business everywhere, downtown here, everywhere has been outside. So we're going to have to get through this because it's going to be hard to exist on just the seats that we have inside with the spacing that we...
And then you throw in the virus to boot as well. I mean, the United States seems to be surging a little bit. Maryland seems to be holding it in check, but I know This thing doesn't really deal with borders too much. It's going to come over. It's going to come over. So we need to figure that out.
So yeah, we got to get through March, as Steve said, and we want to keep all of our people on because they got bills to pay and rent to pay, food to buy, and the unemployment, the big unemployment checks, aren't what they were, right?
No, they're not. And the fiasco in getting unemployment was a problem with the state as well, and that was. I know more people that had issues with that, and I don't envy you being a business owner with employees. When I had employees, that was always weighed so heavy on your mind. It's like, okay, I've got to support myself, but you know what? I didn't have nearly as many as you, but I have 15 people that are relying on me to put, a turkey on their table at Thanksgiving. And that's just something that you really weighs hard on every single business owner that has that.
It does, and for some reason, a lot of these businesses have a very high percentage of single parents. So the people working here and everywhere else are really the person putting the food on the table.
Is that a high percentage in Annapolis? You thought that single parent employees?
I think in the food service business, it just lends itself to that.
Okay.
I can't speak for the lodging or retail or others, but I know in our business it just lends itself because of the hours. People can put together a schedule where they can take care of their children by working days or working nights or working weekends or weekdays. Mm-hmm. They can, we work with them in crafting something that works for them. But the most important thing is we got to keep them here and so they can make money.
Absolutely. Well, what are the tips that both of you guys would offer to a business here to survive, perhaps thrive during the coming months that we're looking forward to and, going through the winter and the spring?
A couple of things. We have a small business hub that we put together. If anyone goes to comeback.annapolis.gov, patrons and customers can go there to find businesses, but businesses can go there to sign up to be part of this hub, and it's a GPS geolocation kind of tool that essentially will help people find you. It's a free tool, so we're encouraging local businesses to register and provide their information just to make themselves a little bit more visible. And speaking of visibility, businesses that have, prior to COVID, had a strong online presence and an e-commerce platform or maybe some, a virtual kind of shopping experience have, by and large, done better than businesses that did not have that kind of technical presence, an online presence. So we've been encouraging businesses to make sure that they are online and to make themselves as accessible as possible to their customers and existing and new customers. Those are probably the two biggest things. Let me say this too. So for retailers, we're making plans and preparations for Midnight Madness. We want to see a strong holiday push that's local. We'll probably be doing some things a little bit different this year to make it easier for retailers to be successful, and I think there are some good things in store. So I just want to spend just a second or so talking about retailers. And another thing too that we haven't really touched on, but I did want to share. Most of the indications that I'm getting is that maritime is doing pretty well. And a lot of people are out buying boats and going boating and yachting and that sort of thing. And so that's a shining spot in this recovery because maritime is so important to the Annapolis community. And I think the driver for this is the fact that if you're out on the water, it's a socially distant recreational activity. And so presumably that's what's behind it, but we are happy to see those that positive impact.
I haven't bought my yacht yet, so.
You can't buy it. They're all gone. They're sold out.
Sort of like a bicycle.
The only thing I would add is, we're going to be figuring out how to deal with the cold weather coming in. So I think everyone in our business has to figure out how to configure yourself that you can do that. And I know that the city has been wonderful, when we came into the summer months, but they will do the same here in the winter months. Is they really worked with us in helping try to figure out how to solve it. It wasn't like we versus they. We needed something and they were trying to, tell us how we couldn't do it. They were really trying to help us out, trying to figure out how you can do it, and that was a wonderful thing. I know they'll continue to do that. And then, I think the carryout is big because a lot of people still don't like coming out. So make sure, as Steve said, make sure it's easy to either do it online or phone in, or make it easy and safe. They feel they're coming in and it's safe to carry the food out.
Well, on the carryout, Dick, do you think the carryout is, you probably sent home 3 or 4 doggy bags a night pre-COVID or whatever it may be, and now you're probably doing
it's
200.
It's huge.
Is that here to stay?
Well, I think it's here to stay as long as the virus is here. I think people will come back out once they feel safe, and I can't tell you when that's going to be. But I think that, we've had to shut it off. Other places do too. If you're on a Friday night and, you've got a place that's reasonably full, and all of a sudden the phones are ringing. At some point you got to say,
we got to stop.
We got to stop it for 15 minutes, and I know a lot of other places have too. And
that's got to kill you.
Yeah, it is. But you have to make sure that the product's good. And but we've had to retrain people because carryout's a different business. When you're doing the volumes that we are, they leave and they're taking the food home. It's got to be exactly right, because if you serve it to a table and you get something a little bit wrong, you can hurry up and get it right. Well, when they get home, then
it's a problem.
It's a problem.
Well, that's one thing that I've noticed is that the restaurants in general have figured out carryout. It's not just throwing the slop in a former styrofoam container and sending it out the door.
Right.
And consumers have realized that I can get a quality meal at the Boatyard. I can get it at Ruth's Chris or Lunis's or wherever it is, and get home and eat it. And the only thing that really is missing is certainly the ambiance of being there and the service. The food quality is there, and I think that's really sort of another way that both the consumer and the businesses have pivoted. They figured out how to deliver that product to take home.
Well, I think we've figured out, too, which menu items travel well and which don't. So when we get a call and they order something that we just know is going to be delicious right now, but in 30 minutes might not be, so we will just tell them, we don't recommend that. It just doesn't travel well.
Smart.
So we're learning all these things. So they're new skills.
Well, there is more to learn. We're learning more and more about this COVID virus and dealing with it on a nationwide level, on a state level, on a county level, and certainly down here on a city level, and even micro down here at the Boatyard Bar and Grille. You're learning every single day. There's always something else that you get. Stephen, man, you've had a baptism by fire coming into this. And you've done a wonderful job. And what's on the agenda for 2021 for you?
Well, you know what? I really appreciate that, John. I do have to give some kudos to the mayor for holding the city's feet to the fire, and for pushing us to do everything within our power to support businesses. But I will say this: Annapolis is an excellent and a wonderful city and town, and I think that the sky is pretty bright for Annapolis. We have a 5G rollout that is, will come into fruition in the near future. The quality of life in Annapolis is wonderful. There's access to the water, which is always an attraction. We have, wonderful anchor institutions in the Naval Academy St. John's and the State House, with state government. We have a very well-educated population, and we have wonderful amenities with our restaurants, our retail establishments, and recreational activities. So Annapolis has all of the components for success, and so I know that we're going to come out of this, maybe a little bloody, but with our head held high, and I think the future is very bright.
That's good to hear. And I will say that it's very encouraging, it's very refreshing to see an administration support the businesses like this one has. And before, I've been a long-time lobbyist to have a business seat on the council. Maybe it's not voting because a lot of the business owners don't live within the city. Just to have a voice on the council would be so important. And from in years past, it always seemed like, well, it doesn't matter what the businesses do as long as we get our tax money. And that was just the absolute worst attitude to have as far as administration goes. And it's very refreshing. And I know Gavin's got his background in business and certainly restaurateuring.
And we have Steve looking after us.
Yeah, and it's
thank you, Steve.
Without a doubt. And as you said, 500 plus businesses that joined in on the task force. Thank you, and actually, I thank all the other business owners too, because it was a joint effort to get where we are. I'm glad to hear that the future looks cloudy, but it's not horrible. We may be battered and bruised on the way out of this. The thing is to support local. I mean, these are our neighbors. These are the people that we're passing in the grocery store. It's the guy that cut you off on Chesapeake Avenue because the road's too darn narrow. I mean, this is our community. This is our home, and this is what we need to keep it in order.
Right. I just want one last thanks, and I think you probably did this too. Is all the people that live around here. Being outside and. It's probably changed a couple things for them, and everyone has said, look, the businesses need to survive. So, if there's a tent outside and people walking from Boatyard down to, Forward Brewing and now Davis Pub down on 4th Street, it's okay because it's going to help them stay there. And so we also thank all the people, neighbors here who live here who have said, we're here to help. And we don't mind someone walking down the street.
Right.
Anyway.
Well, I think that if something good comes out of this is we'll see the cooperation among businesses. And we saw that gel on West Street with the dinner under the stars and all the restaurants coming together on that. And we're seeing it in other parts of the city as well, which I think is just a great thing to be able to sit there and say, okay, honestly, I can't eat at the Boatyard 7 nights a week. So there's no reason for, to not share that wealth there.
Exactly.
And I think, hopefully, I think we're in a good place. And I think you've done an outstanding job, Stephen. I think, Dick, your leadership on the task force was phenomenal. And everybody get onto the comeback.annapolis.gov, find out what it is. You can go to the city's economic development page, and you've got all those resources there. And there are plenty that are there. And I imagine as we go through a second surge of this, that there will be additional resources that will be coming available, whether it be through the county, the city, or the state, or the feds. Just keep your eyes and ears open for that as businesses and consumers get out there and support the local businesses.
Amen.
All righty, Stephen, thank you very much for joining us. Sorry you couldn't enjoy this great lunch, but, hey, that's your loss.
Crab cakes, we'll send them over.
All right, sounds good. Thank you.
Take care, Stephen. Thank you.
All right.
Bye-bye.
Bye.
This has been a bonus podcast from Eye on Annapolis. Please visit us at eyeonannapolis.net. Follow us on Facebook at All Annapolis and on Twitter at Eye on Annapolis. And if you haven't subscribed to the Daily News Brief podcast, go for it. And all of your local news will be delivered to your phone, tablet, or smart device by 6 a.m. every Monday through Friday.